In a true David vs. Goliath story, college football powerhouse Kansas travels to Norman to take on the unranked underdog Oklahoma Sooners. Here's a quick breakdown of each team's current status, keys to victory, and final prediction for the game. Let's start with Oklahoma. Last week was an embarrassment. I don't think there's a word in the English dictionary that describes what this performance was, or at least not one that's appropriate. Let's jump right into the offense, which should be an easy topic to break down. Dylan Gabriel warmed up with the team, but when it became evident that he wasn't starting, every Sooner fan knew to temper their expectations for the offense. But I'm not sure if I expected it to be this bad. The worst part is that the offense wasn't a complete failure, although the big zero on the scoreboard may indicate that. Early on in the game, the Sooners had some success running the Wildcat, chewing clock and driving down the field. The only issue was that they couldn't finish, and I attribute that to the play calling of Jeff Lebby. You don't abandon the run when it's working. And it felt like as soon as there was even a little bit of momentum, Lebby would get cute and it bit Oklahoma multiple times. What's even more concerning is the fact that Oklahoma didn't have a backup plan on offense. Now I get it, when Lincoln Riley left, the quarterback room was decimated. But this is Oklahoma. It's inexcusable to not have backups that can run this offense. The team came in unprepared, trotted out a gimmick offense, and when it didn't work, looked absolutely listless. Even more confusing was the fact that we didn't see a different true quarterback come in until about 4 minutes left in the game, which is laughable considering Oklahoma threw for a grand total of 39 yards. 5 players had passing attempts and only 2 were quarterbacks. To put it in perspective, the second most successful passer was Michael Turk, a punter who went 1 of 1 for 3 yards. The result was this: the Sooners offense looked like it gave up, plain and simple. And I hold the coaching staff responsible for not having this offense anywhere close to ready for such an important game. It feels weird to say that a defense gave up 49 points and somehow they weren't the biggest disappointment on the team. However, don't get it twisted, they were still awful. The Texas offense is pretty good, especially with Quinn Ewers back, but the defense made them look like world beaters. As expected, Bijan Robinson had yet another performance where it felt like he was covered in butter. Tackling continued to be an issue for the team. Somehow, even when rushing 3, there were wide open gaps in zones. It was pretty much what we've come to expect over the past few games from this Sooner defense. I get it. Brent Venables has installed a defense that may be challenging for the players to grasp. The growing pains are clearly there, but at some point you need to take a look at your personnel and think what puts them in the best position to succeed. Because if that doesn't happen, the defense will continue to struggle through the rest of the season and Oklahoma will have to find a way to win shootouts. Also, if this trend does continue, I fully expect Ted Roof to be the fall guy here as the defensive coordinator. Let's hope that solves the issue, because if not, the Sooners might be in very deep waters. Coming off a beatdown by TCU, I was hoping Oklahoma would show some life here, but that wasn't the case. This was by far the worst performance I have ever seen from the team. Taking a look at how they've done in Big 12 play so far, it's difficult to imagine that the Sooners will be favored in any game for the remainder of the season. But hey, surely a game against Big 12 Sellers Weller Kansas will put them on the right track, right? Probably not. Kansas has the entire college football world behind them, and it isn't surprising. The turnaround has been more than just impressive, it's been extraordinary so far. Saying Jayhawk football has struggled throughout most of their existence would be an understatement. The last time they finished with a winning record was 2008. But if Lance Leipold and company have anything to say about it, that streak will be broken this season, and it starts with a high-powered offense. Leading that offense is rising star quarterback Jalon Daniels, who was given full reins to the offense after emerging as a starter near the end of last season. Daniels had a 3-game stretch that put him in position for some postseason accolades and wins over West Virginia, Houston, and Duke. Unfortunately for Jayhawk fans, he got injured against TCU, but unlike a certain other team, Kansas had a next man up mentality. Enter Jason Bean, who threw for over 260 yards, 4 touchdowns, and kept Kansas in the game despite eventually dropping it. The status of Daniels is unknown as of recording this video, but regardless of who is taking snaps, quarterback will remain a dangerous position for Kansas. In the backfield, the Jayhawks have been led by a trio of Daniels, Devin Neal, and Daniel Highshaw. Unfortunately, Highshaw got injured against Iowa State, and it's unlikely he returns against the Sooners. While Neal hasn't been setting the world on fire, he has been incredibly effective with the touches he has received, putting up over 6 yards per carry. Last year, he did torch the Oklahoma defense for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. When it comes to throwing the ball, Jalon Daniels loves to spread the wealth, already throwing a touchdown to 9 different receivers. In the TCU game last week, between Daniels and Bean, 9 different players had receptions. Although the trio of Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold, and Quentin Skinner lead the way in total yards, any eligible receiver is a scoring threat in this offense. The Kansas O-line has done an impressive job run blocking as well as keeping Daniels clean out of the pocket. He's only been sacked 3 times this season, and they look to continue to play at a high level against the Sooners. When you're putting up nearly 40 points per game, you know you're doing something right. The offense has been what has garnered Kansas the most praise, but the defense is nothing to shake your head at either. Last year's Jayhawk defense was abysmal, giving up 42.2 points per game. That ranked 129th nationally, so it's safe to say that just about anything would be an improvement. However, defense has been a pleasant surprise in Lawrence this year. Now, this isn't exactly the steel curtain trotting out here, but improvements have been made across the board. Just take a look at scoring defense alone, from over 40 points per game to just over 26. When Kansas had to rely on their defense to win a game when the offense struggled against Iowa State, they held the Cyclones to just 26 yards rushing and did what it took to secure the win. That's the sign of a quality defense. This side of the ball is led by senior linebacker Rich Miller, and boasts a group of upperclassmen that have taken steps to improve this much maligned group. They've created chaos for opponents, sacking opposing quarterbacks 16 times this year and forcing mistakes, picking the ball off 5 times. The secondary has been the weak spot for Kansas so far, ranking 9th in the Big 12 in passing yards allowed, but again, I can't emphasize this enough. This isn't your typical Kansas defense. It's got a pulse and the capability to clamp down and play well when things get tough. We haven't seen a team from Lawrence play this well since 2007. As a reminder, that squad went 12-1 and won the Orange Bowl. Now, I'm not saying this team is going to perform to that level, but one thing's for sure. Kansas has proven that they are a serious player in the Big 12, which you can't really say about the Sooners. Keys to victory. While the Oklahoma offense hasn't been firing on all cylinders, one thing they have done a good job of is hitting on big chunk plays. For Kansas to win this game, they will need to emphasize keeping everything in front of them on defense. The secondary could have their work cut out for them if they can't. Oklahoma is riding a 17-game win streak against Kansas that dates back to 2000. The closest Kansas has been to beating OU through this stretch came last year, and they still ended up losing by 12. The Jayhawks need to put all that behind them and forget about the logo on their opponent's helmet Saturday. Keeping the pressure off the quarterback and creating gaps for the run game will be huge for the Jayhawks. While Oklahoma may have more pure talent along the defensive line than Kansas does along their offensive line, sometimes mindset, heart, and hard work can go a long way to winning those battles in the trenches. And that's a battle Kansas must win if they hope to leave Norman with the dub. Something needs to change in the mindset of both coaches and players in Norman. This team looks different, and not in a good way. The recent performances are unacceptable. Someone is going to need to step up as a leader on both sides of the ball, or we can expect the losing streak to balloon to 4 on Saturday. The Oklahoma defense has done an excellent job of making opposing quarterbacks look like Heisman frontrunners. A week after Adrian Martinez had one of the worst games of his career, he suddenly became Cam Newton. Partway through the TCU game, announcers were talking about Max Duggan as an NFL prospect. Quinn Ewers officially had his coming out party, throwing for nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Whoever Kansas trots out at quarterback, be it Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels, the Sooners defense needs to focus on playing well or he'll be the next in what's becoming a long line of quarterbacks to have a career day against OU. The past few weeks I've had a key to victory of forget last week, encouraging the defense to move on from the issues they've had and look ahead. Not anymore. Remember this performance against Texas. Break it down. Make changes in personnel. Make changes in the formations and coverages we run. Do something. Because if not, this team will continue to be an embarrassment on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, Kansas played Oklahoma tight in Lawrence in what many people brushed off as an irregularity. This year, I'm sure Kansas will come into Norman favored, and no one will be shocked if they win. The whole college football world will be rooting for them. However, the college football world won't be at the Palace on the Prairie this weekend, and no one in that stadium cares about what the rest of the nation wants. Oklahoma plays the villain role, spoiling Kansas's rise to prominence, winning this game 38-35. And honestly, if the Sooners don't get the job done, then we might be looking at a team that skids to a 3-9 finish. Let's be honest, this Sooner team isn't the best, so I built the greatest Oklahoma squad of all time. Check out that video here, and as always, have a great day and see y'all at the next one.